Hey everybody, welcome back to That Makes Sense, the show where we talk all things consumer. And we can't talk consumer without covering off on the biggest season in retail, the holidays. So here we are for a special quick episode on this festive season. Now you may be wondering why we're talking about the holiday season when we're barely 2 months into 2020. Well, it's really all about timing. 2019 earnings have come in. Census Bureau has released their stats, and we've really had enough time to reflect on what went down in stores and online over the last few months. So, were the predictions right? What were the biggest trends? And probably most importantly, where can we expect the next holiday season to go? Today, I'm joined by two of my colleagues from Deloitte's Retail and Consumer Products practice, Simon Chafetz and Meghan Cole, who are both responsible for Deloitte's annual Holiday Quick Take report. So let's do a quick take on the holiday season. Thank you both for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having me as well.
All right, guys. Well, before we get to the good stuff, I want to give you both a chance just to tell us a bit more about yourself. And how about what is your favorite holiday memory?
I'm Meghan Cole. I'm originally from Boston, but I'm currently based out of our New York office. One of my favorite memories, or should I say holiday traditions, is baking with my family. I bake a bunch of different things, but my favorite is this rum cake my sister and I have been making for years. It's delicious and always a big hit.
Megan, that sounds awesome. And this is Simon. I'm a manager in the New York City office. One of my favorite holiday memories actually happened this year. I was in India for a friend's wedding over the holiday season, and I met up with a group of people to light the Hanukkah candles and have a little bit of a holiday party in New Delhi. It was a pretty unique and special experience this year.
Awesome. As you guys know, you listeners, you may not, Deloitte's been doing a holiday survey every year for the past 34 years. So basically this holiday survey is an aging millennial at this point. But in that survey, we poll consumers right before the start of the shopping season, which really gives us insight into the potentials of the season, the hows, the whens, the wheres, and the for what people will be shopping. But today, our listeners will get an extra special gift of hearing about the unpublished, dare I say, super secret quick take report that you both work on. And what's cool about this is it actually, right after the fact, examines what actually happened in the holiday season. But a little curveball, I do want to start not at the 2019 sales and trends, but instead go all the way back to 2010. I would love to spend a little time talking through what holiday shopping was like 10 years ago to set the stage. Simon?
Thanks, Bobby. Yeah, as we were developing our report, we took time to look back at what news stories were dominating the holiday headlines in 2010. And what we found made us chuckle a little bit. So I'll highlight two themes quickly. One of them was all around the explosion of e-commerce. Back in 2010, digital sales during the holiday rose to $36 billion. And that was legitimately a big deal at the time. It's just funny to compare that to 2019's digital sales numbers, which were $125 billion, which is 3.5 times bigger than it was in 2010. Of course, the evolution of mobile commerce and social media have played a really major role in that growth. The other interesting headline from 2010 was around the types of stores that were the big winners back then. In 2010, the holiday headlines were all around big box and department stores, grabbing the majority of consumer share of wallet. Today, those formats represent a much, much smaller share and continue to fall, due in large part to cheaper and more convenient options. So we've really come a long way, Bobby.
That's really cool. I think if you always put yourself in the present, people will talk about today being the most rapid change and crazy disruption, especially in retail. But, when you do go back 10 years, it really hits you how far we've come. So let's come back to the present and let's talk just a little bit about the tip of the iceberg of the 2019 holiday shopping season, which, by the way, just to be clear, it's the period between October and December. So Meghan, tell us a little bit about the predictions going into this year's holiday shopping season.
Well, the pre-holiday consumer sentiment was positive, and total retail sale predictions were strong, ranging from 4.5 to 5%. And helping to drive this goal were higher projections for e-commerce sales, as well as smartphone usage. So how did the results compare to the predictions? The 2019 holiday season yielded positive overall growth, but it did fall short of the projections. Total spend reached $880 billion, but this only represented 3.4% growth compared to our projections of 4.5 to 5%. In terms of the breakdown by channel, though, online spend and digital spend continued to grow, up 18.8% from last year. So despite a healthy holiday season, why were we below projections? Several factors may have contributed to the missed expectations, including the international trade wars as well as political uncertainty, making it really difficult to project consumer spend. There was also the cooling economy and the shorter holiday season. For the first time since 2013, there were 6 fewer shopping days between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Another interesting takeaway from this holiday season is that traditional key shopping days like Black Friday and Cyber Monday are becoming less and less important, which is likely a result of shoppers being able to access holiday products and promos online throughout the holiday season, rather than through doorbuster deals on key days.
Interesting. And the interesting nugget in there was the number of shopping days. It feels like that's probably a really important factor there, just having less days to shop, almost a week less this year than previous years. But let's shift a little bit from mixed expectations and kind of go glass half full, because there still was 3+% increased spending this year. So from what I've read and got a sneak peek of the report, there really are a couple of giants in the room when it comes to the U.S. retail holiday season. These are the ones that combined captured nearly a third of all consumer spend in November. So, I'm talking about the biggest retailer, the biggest online site. We all know who they are. Tell me, Meghan, a little bit about these giants and help me understand how they continue to win during the holiday season.
Yes, these giants performed extremely well this holiday season. During the week of Thanksgiving, the biggest retailer was able to transition from the world's largest grocer to the world's largest Black Friday merchant. And part of their success was due to the buy online, pick up in store offering, also known as BOPIS. They were able to leverage their extensive retail footprint of nearly 5,000 stores to boost sales and reduce shipping costs. Meanwhile, the biggest online retailer continued to dominate the online market, and they don't appear to be slowing in growth anytime soon. So, of course, this means that other retailers had to compete for the remaining share of holiday spending, and they amped up the experiential tactics and unique offerings.
Yeah, Meghan, that's a great point. I was actually really impressed by those retailers who went the extra mile to incorporate the augmented reality technologies into shopping experience through mobile apps. One mass merchant I can think of actually allowed shoppers to place home furnishings in a room alongside their holiday items, like a Christmas tree. Kind of interesting.
Definitely. And speaking of mobile apps, there was actually one home improvement retailer who unveiled a line of pre-lit Christmas trees with smart technology, allowing customers to control patterns and colors when they were in store.
Yeah, another interesting play this holiday season was the rise of multi-sensory concept stores. One specialty apparel retailer actually created what they called Arctic rooms or cold rooms, where they set the room to 10 degrees Fahrenheit and surrounded it with real snow, allowing shoppers to try on winter coats and jackets, really trying to simulate that environment in which they'd use the product in real life.
Well, it's pretty evident that retailers went to various lengths to differentiate themselves this holiday season. Another tactic that they used was to join forces and partner with direct-to-consumer brands, as well as non-retailers like subscription services. We even saw mass merchants partner with really brand-conscious DTC companies.
Yeah, I was really blown away by the number of partnerships that were used to drive sales this holiday season. The collaboration between retailers and ride-sharing services was a unique tactic, and it was something that could potentially evolve beyond just the holiday season.
That's super interesting. I love the sort of ping pong back and forth about different ways that retailers outside of the big two really were focusing on sort of the need to stand out, whether it's from experiential tactics in the store, unique features and functionality on the mobile app or website, or even partnerships, right, to bring in eyeballs and interest from, people who have shared values with other companies. So I love those examples. I would expect to see more of those kind of each holiday season, and probably some of those things like, BOPIS that you talked about, Meghan, coming more normal during kind of the regular season, if you will, not just the holiday season. One area I think a lot of listeners might take for granted, and a lot of consumers, frankly, take for granted, is what it takes to behind the scenes to support a holiday season. And that's really the infrastructure of this shopping season. It has to expand dramatically to support the demand and the time crunch that comes this time of year, from shipping vendors to cloud hosting, and from ad platforms to software providers. Really almost every corner of the behind the scenes retail ecosystem is kind of under duress. So Simon, maybe you could start by talking us through how these players invest, and walk us through a little bit where they drive efficiency and where they're still working on trying to keep up with the demand.
Sure. And I like, Bobby, how you broke down the groups of infrastructure providers into both the physical infrastructure and the digital infrastructure, like the technology backend. But if we're thinking about the physical infrastructure for a second, there are a couple things to think about when we're talking about their role during the holiday season. And so let's start with a number that's pretty shocking. It's 80 million. That's the number of packages that carriers deliver per day during Cyber Monday. So the question is, what were they investing in to be able to allow for that capability? Well, number one is hiring. One major carrier actually increased their hourly pay from $10 an hour to $14 per hour this year to incent more labor to work for them. Number two was unique hiring methods. One major online retailer, Amazon, actually encouraged its employees to quit and start their own Amazon delivery businesses. And thirdly is the technology. Another major parcel carrier retrofitted 20 of their facilities to be able to handle increased sorting capacity by 400,000 additional parcels per hour. It's pretty incredible. But the interesting thing is that even with those investments, with the huge delivery volume that we experienced this year, carrier performance actually declined when we compared the performance from 2018. And despite the massive investments, there's still work to be done to shore things up for next year.
Right. Even with one of the big shipping carriers ending its 2 major shipping contracts with Amazon, it still saw a decline in performance. On the other hand, Amazon's last mile delivery operations, which I'll say is definitely non-traditional and growing in size, they actually received a 98.9% service level during the holidays.
So I could talk for hours on this because it's really fascinating, but I promised at the start that this would be a quick take. So in that spirit, each of you, what's one final takeaway you think our listeners absolutely have to know? Maybe Meghan, you go first.
Sure. I believe that spend on entertaining at home and away from the home will continue to grow. As a so-called millennial, I've definitely seen the shift occurring, so it's something retailers need to be wary of going forward.
Well, for me, my biggest takeaway is that this is the year that BOPIS finally stuck. BOPIS, of course, is the buy online, pick up in store capability. And we actually saw a 47% uptick in consumers' use of BOPIS this year. There's likely a combination of reasons that contributed to this phenomenon, the incredible investment that retailers made in their back-end infrastructure to allow for it, as well as the heavy marketing to drive awareness among consumers. But I expect this to continue to grow in years to come.
It's interesting. Those two things might have impacts on each other, right? Entertaining more at home and, a BOPIS capability when you realize you've run out of a key item for your dinner party. Those two things at times might actually come with some sort of connection to drive it going forward. But either way, I know we had to keep it quick, but still amazing information from both of you. I loved hearing about the wins and losses this holiday season. And frankly, I hope you'll join me again same time next year, or I don't know, maybe after back to school for another quick take on that season. So Meghan, Simon, thank you so much for your time and insight.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thanks for having me. This has been so much fun.
Anytime. Okay, so that's it. Join us next time for another episode of That Makes Sense. You can listen on your favorite podcatcher, whether it be Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or Spotify. Simply search for That Makes Sense. Connect with me on social media, Bobby Stevens on LinkedIn or @Bobby Stevens on Twitter. This presentation contains general information only, and Deloitte is not, by means of this presentation, rendering accounting, business, financial, investment, legal, tax, or other professional advice or services. This presentation is not a substitute for such professional advice or services, nor should it be used as a basis for any decision or action that may affect your business. Before making any decision or taking any action that may affect your business, you should consult a qualified professional advisor. Deloitte shall not be responsible for any loss sustained by any person who relies on this presentation.